Hello everybody, I am Duke, and if you're clicking on this video, you probably are here because you want to see, or at least understand, that I won an MCS, and then I topped the very next one with Labrynth. And overall, I had a blast at the MCS, and it was a cool experience. It was probably one of the first competitive experiences I've had. I can't do many competitive tournaments that often, and so whenever I see one of these free tournaments, I jump at the spot. Now, specifically, I knew I wanted to play something competitive for this tournament, and I was swapping between a few things, like Cashier was thrown in, and I believe Sprite Variants was another thing that me and my buddies talked about. But then I just decided on playing the deck that I knew I was most comfortable with, and I also knew how to play it quite well, which is Labrynth. Now, the build that I had originally set on before the tournament was a little bit different than this. It wasn't having the anti-spells in there. They actually weren't in there at all, funny enough. Until last second, my best friend, he told me, put in anti-spell. He's like, dude, put in anti-spell. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a card. Because, honestly, if you look at Floodgates, like Rivalry and Gozen and stuff, well, I don't think Gozen's limited. I know Rivalry's limited, but, they're limited. You kind of expect that most, if not all of them, are going to be limited. But no, apparently this thing is semi-limited. I'm like, okay, sure. This thing almost single-handedly won me the whole tournament. That and Eradicator were a powerful combo that few were really expecting, to be honest. And if they were expecting Labrynth, they were not expecting the anti-spell specifically. So yeah, the anti-spell is in here mainly to deal with Pearly and Kashtira and the like, but it also hits other decks, funny enough, like Tearlament for a certain degree, Dragon Link, kind of, a little bit, not as much, obviously. But, and this also hits rogue decks, quite a few rogue decks as well, that rely on spell cards. So, yeah, other than that, though, let me just get into the card by card here. So, hand traps, 2 Droll, the 2 Maxi, and the 3 Ash Blossom. So these were just the ones that I thought were the best. Specifically, the Droll was also for Pearly, and so because I thought if I didn't open Anti-Spell, which obviously, not every hand's going to have Anti-Spell, then, might as well have a Droll and Lockbird in there somewhere. Drolling after the Pearlily adds the My Friend is super satisfying, and so, yeah, we have that. Also, before I go on, this Wannabe is actually a second Pot of Extravagance. I can't put a second one in here now because, sad. It got limited because of me, right? No, I'm going to tell everybody that, but, it is what it is, I guess. So yeah, the Wannabe is just a second extra, and then the 2 Fenrirs. Fenrir also, as you might have seen in the feature matches, well, the 2 matches that I was in specifically and in the video, the original one from, 2 weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So the Fenrirs were amazing. Like, holy hell, like, they said no Cash got into Top Cut, but no Kashtira Fenrir did. Kashtira Fenrir is Kashtira, basically. And so, the 2 Fenrirs are, their purpose is essentially just being a better Pankratops, but also, specifically, 2 Fenrir is really weird, because you can summon the Fenrir, and then add Fenrir, and then you can then use that Fenrir in your hand for the effect of a Labrynth for a furniture, and that's often what I did. I would add the Fenrir and then use that second copy of Fenrir in my hand for a furniture discard, and that got me a lot of utility because I didn't have to discard anything else in my hand that I'd rather keep. And then, as for engine, it's pretty standard. The 3 Ariana, the 3 Chandriglier, the 3 Torby, the 1 Ku Clock, the 2 Lady, and then the 1 Silver. I know some people run 3 Lady. I don't think that's wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong. I mean, me personally, though, I think 2 is enough. I don't think you need more than that. And then the 1 Ku Clock, I've been seeing some people recently, especially in the CCG, run more than 1 Ku Clock, but I think in Master Duel right now, you still you can get away with the 1, maybe 2, but it's a soft brick, and so you might not really want to see multiples of that in your hand. And then the Labrynth, which, you always play one of this. It's a really good card, in all honesty. Usually you don't use it for the Welcome Labrynth, or at least I didn't anyway. I didn't really use it for the Welcome Labrynth bonus effect pop. I actually ended up using it more for the special Summon a Fiend from Hand Grave effect, which was able to activate Eradicator, and then immediately after the Eradicator resolves for spells, I can summon back the lady that I tributed for it, which was really, really fun. And then the Labyrinth traps, 2 Welcome Labyrinth, and then 3 Big Welcome. Hyper Standard. Specifically in this build, since this is basically just like Heal Labyrinth here, you don't really want to run 3 of the Welcome unless you really want consistency. And funny enough, in the MCS that happened this past Sunday, I actually did test 3 Welcome in a slightly different build, but we'll get to that. So then for the one-ofs, sort of, Karma Cannon, Terrors of the Overroot, Dogmatic Punishment, the 1 Eradicator, and then the Dimensional Barrier. And Dimensional Barrier, as you guys might have seen in the Pearly matchup in the finals, this card won me the whole game. This card won me the entire game. This card is insane. You can reset it off of Silver every turn. The Pearly player quite literally can't play the game. I mean, Zeus and Noir is powerful cards if they can get to them. That's the key portion there, if they can get to them. And then the last card in the deck is just the 3 Imperm. Overall, main deck, quite literally, in any match, every single one of these cards came up. Every last one of them. For that tournament specifically, also, the Anti-Spell, like I said, nobody was expecting this. Nobody was expecting you to just drop Anti-Spell Fragrance on them when they're playing Pearly or even Kashtira, which, funny enough, I only really played, I think, in Swiss 1 Kashtira, I believe it was. And they bricked. They bricked. And then the extra deck here, I know a lot of people probably are wondering what the heck is this extra deck. So some of the stuff looks fine, like, the Entis, you got the Garura, and then the Bucephalus for the punishment targets. Now that's fine, and then along with, the 2 Chaos Angels, the Muckraker, Nightmare, Unicorn, Dark, Zeus. That's all cool and dandy. But then you get to these 4 cards, and specifically, everything that's not the Stone King Darius, and then people start to question my sanity. So, funny story. I built this deck exactly the day of the submissions, and I didn't have all the cards, and so I was desperately grinding this account for gems, and I did end up getting, basically everything here. I mean, I got not the extra deck, really. The main deck, and then most of the extra deck, but I failed to get enough material in order to craft everything that I wanted, and so I had to settle for N and R cards only. And I had the Downer already. I decrafted the Downer because it didn't come up at all. But the Evil Swarm Nightmare, and then the most infamous one to everybody, the Musa Rhythm Spring Djinn. This thing, it never came up at all. The only thing that it really did was be a punishment, well, not punishment, a extravagance fodder, if you will. But I thought that it could come up for a Zeus line. It'd be really funny to make Downward on top of that after it went to 3k, and thus it's in here. So, specifically, though, like I said, every single card in this main deck came up at some point. Quite literally. The hand traps, I think I showed off every hand trap in just the 2 matches that I was recorded on. And the anti-spell, obviously, the D-barrier, most of these cards, funny enough, came up on screen in the semifinals and the finals matches that I played. Most of these came up, and which is what I wanted. And the only issue I had, the only main matchup that I was like, okay, this is very bad, is the Labrynth matchup, which is why I have the 1 Tears of the Overroot, because this card can win the mirror match. It's that simple. The only loss/tie I ever had, the only round in Swiss that I lost or tied, was a tie against Rorkalos, which was a Labrynth mirror. Good lord, that was the toughest game I played the whole tournament, probably. Because it was quite literally, I didn't want to lose life points because I knew from the previous tournament how many times Rorkalos got screwed over by losing due to time rules. And so it was essentially just a huge chicken game of trying to deal damage and then trying to prevent yourself from taking damage. And eventually we went to a tie. I was happy with that result, especially because I probably was going to lose that. But yeah, that was the only main super large roadblock anyway. The top 16, way harder than the combined Swiss matches or whatnot, but that one round 2 versus Rorkalos was basically a top 16 match. It was not awful in I hated it type of way. It was awful in a Rorkalos is an incredibly skilled player way. And then I know that some people also, I believe, see my list from the previous one, the one that happened this Sunday, and here it is. So the elephant in the room here is that mostly nothing has changed, except, this time the wannabe is actually real. The extra deck finally has all its slots filled out with the Wave King Caesar, Arise Heart and Machinex, which I finally finished it. And then these 2 cards. So the Barrier Statue of the Abyss. I found out quite literally the day before the tournament that Ariane could summon any level 4 or lower Fiend monster from the deck that is not, including a non-Labrynth monster, and I'm like, oh, you can just summon this and ruin somebody's day, potentially. The hilarious thing is that through the whole tournament, these 2 cards never appeared really at all. The only time that any of these appeared was the Ariane, which appeared in 1 round in Swiss, and the Barrier Statue, which appeared in the top 16 when I normal summoned it. And that's quite literally it. That's the only times that these cards ever got to shine. The Wannabe, also, funny enough, I never drew this thing at all. I never drew the Wannabe at all, which was hilarious to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I can get an extra Pot of Prosperity, essentially, or, as I now call it, the fabled third furniture. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that would be cool. I never saw it. I never saw it at one. At all during the games. I wish I would have certain games. I probably would have won. This tournament around, though, the matchups were quite a lot more diverse. I actually ended up losing round 1 and was in a perpetual state of if I lose literally any game, then I'm out, because obviously my my ranking since I lost round 1 is going to put me infinitely lower than everybody else, even if I lose in round 8. And so I'm like, okay, well, I gotta play my best, and it seems I did, just like the last tournament. So again, basically all these cards came up at some point. The other major difference anyway is 3 Welcome Labrynth, and the reason why I did 3 Welcome Labrynth was just because, the Ariane. You want to see this card in your hand when you have a bunch of traps. You really want to see this card in your hand when you have a bunch of traps. It's pretty bad in just about every other scenario where you don't open enough trap cards to facilitate the Ariane, plus protecting your Barrier Statue, and maybe even also get Labrynth combo on top of that. The major issue I was having with this deck, or at least a potential issue, it never happened, was too many monsters in the hand, and that was like the very big, like, oh, scary moment, which never happened. Like I said, the Fenrirs, they came up as well. They did Fenrir things. The Extravagance, funny enough, even though it's at 1, I saw this quite a bit. It's really the only pot card that I'd consider playing in Labrynth and Master Duel. Maybe. I've been considering playing Prosperity and then maybe extra wannabes to be like extra prosperities essentially, and the fabled third furniture. But I'm not entirely sold on that just yet. Our Lord and Savior Ryan Yu has said that Pot of Extravagance is the greatest pot card for Labrynth, and so I've currently gone for that. And apart from that, again, aside from the extra, it's mainly the same list, as you can see. Because Labrynth's just annoying as hell to deal with normally. The only reason why I lost in the top 16 was my opponent was playing Ghost Trick Pearly, and they freaking summoned Dullahan into Angel of Mischief and attacked over the Barrier Statue when I have no trap cards, and all of a sudden went basically full combo again. That deck is weird because I don't think it's the best deck in Master Duel, to be honest. I think there are probably arguments at the very least to say Pure Pearly has something above it. I don't think it's the quote unquote best deck anyway. I still think Pure Pearly has an edge over it, just because the Ghost Trick cards, they're really, really nice. They're really nice. What they get you, the Utopic Draco Future and all that sort of stuff, and even the renovation to summon Sokyu Boss, I believe it is, the rank 2 Sokyu Boss, and then overlay a Noir on top of that. That's hilarious. I'm not saying that that's bad or anything like that, but you're running Ghost Trick cards when you kind of want to see, mainly anyway, Pearly cards. So if you open a hand of hand traps and the few Ghost Trick cards in your deck, well then I don't know what you're going to do at that point. At the very least, in Pure Pearly, you get more hands where you have, Pearly Spell, at least try and, go off from there anyway, and often do. But yeah, that deck, specifically this, though, this fun matchup anyway, was pretty bad. The Utopic Draco Future, they did in Brick, of course. They did in Brick. You really brick with that deck. Even if they're playing Ghost Trick cards, it's still Pearly, it's still consistent. They didn't brick, and so they kind of just rammed me over, sort of, anyway. Like I said, they ran the Barrier Statue over, they made Utopic Draco Future, and then they cleared the board with Noir, I believe, and that was just it. There was nothing I could do at that point. I had, no cards in hand. There was no way to, get something out of the field with a normal trap effect. There was nothing, and so I just kind of lost after that point. But yeah, so everything is in here, like I said last time, for mostly the same reasons anyway. The addition of Ghost Trick Pearly into the mix kind of got me a little bit concerned anyway, because I knew I'd see it, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to deal with the Draco Future and that sort of stuff. So, honestly, I was thinking of upping Dimensional Barrier up to, 2 or even 3 copies in the deck, just because it's that strong. But I also did not want to lose to Lightning Storm and Feather Duster. I didn't want to lose to those cards, and so I just kind of kept it at 1. It was pretty good, though. Like I said, I got top 16 anyway. We've all seen it. It worked out, of course. In the future, though, I'm not so sure, because we have another set coming out before the large December finale anyway. But I believe the next MCS, the last week of MCSs for this season, will be played with the current card pool. Maybe a different ban list, but I believe it's current card pool. They might release a ban list in between, which is why I say, maybe different ban list. But, yeah, so, again, everything here, mainly the same. The Wave High King Caesar and the Arise Heart never came up, but they could have come up. And then I didn't play against any Castiras, so, there's that. So yeah, the Arise Heart is there for more Zeus lines. The Wave King Caesar and the Machinex and the Darius on top of that is also for Zeus lines. It's all for Zeus lines. Obviously, it gets kind of finicky if the Pot of Extravagance banishes your Zeus. Then you kind of hope that you can, like, make Machinex and just use its effects normally, because this thing actually has pretty good effect that's generic for some reason. Generic to this deck, anyway. So yeah, overall change of this deck, I kind of regretted having these two in, even though I really didn't see them at all. I probably could have been playing the second and third dimensional barrier and probably have had a good better time. Wannabe as well. The Wannabe edition, it was kind of a test, and hypothetically, if I could see it, it'd be great. Hypothetically, anyway. In testing, if I saw it, it was pretty good in that one moment. I'm currently testing a build that is playing 3 Wannabe, just, to see how that works. And, you don't really want to see multiple Wannabes in your hand. That's all I'm going to say for that. But yeah, for the most part, Labrynth is in a weird spot, currently anyway, to where it's like I think it's a tier 2 deck, right? Should be anyway. I think I'm asking them they have it a tier 2 deck. It's a tier 2 deck, but in a best of 3 like tournament setting like the top 16 was, the opponent has side deck options and they'll just side deck in a Reboot, and that's probably going to be the instant win. And so last up here we have the side deck. Now this side deck is the side deck that I used for the second MCS, the one that I got top 16 at, but I didn't win it all. The original one had like floodgate trap holes, had multiple torrentials in there, that sort of stuff. That's also because of the budget reason I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I really didn't have any crafting material for that. And mainly, I didn't really side anything aside from like the Ice Dragon's Prison, which is still here. And then obviously you see I decrafted these two or whatnot, just because, again, I didn't really find much use of them later in testing after these MCSs. But, hypothetically, Wiretap can negate the Red Reboot and even the Royal Decree if you wanted to. If they were playing that for some reason, it can negate that sort of stuff and shuffle it into the deck, so they can't like reset it from the graveyard with some BS effect that you don't know about or whatnot. So that's what the wire taps are for. I did side them into the Pearly game, the Ghost Trick Pearly in top 16. I never saw them. Waybridge is just Waybridge. I mean, like, I was thinking that this could come up, and it was in. It's a good generic normal trap. Might not run it in the TCG, but you can run it here. Second Karma Cannon, cool. You can flip everything to face down defense, and you can run 2 Karma Cannon now, meaning, woohoo, double the Karma Cannon, double the fun. Ghastly Glitch, just if you want to send a furniture deck to grave or whatnot. Ice Dragon's Prison. It's Ice Dragon's Prison. Deck Devastation Virus. If the Eradicator didn't really work for you well, this could. The Double Torrential is still in here for some reason. I decided it could come up, so why not? It's in there. Triple Wannabe. The 2 extra Wannabe that's not in the current main deck for, that list. That's just an extra consistency card just in case you want it. And then the Gamma and then the Driver. Which, it's just in case you're thinking that the opponent is playing like a heavy hand trap or a heavy monster deck. And hypothetically, you can pitch the Driver off of the furniture, so it's not like a total pain in the ass if you draw the Driver there. It still sucks, but yeah. See, overall, that's mainly it. Anyway, that's mainly the thoughts. Again, I'm currently testing builds that obviously don't have these in here. It's probably a little bit more streamlined. I'm testing Prosperity and stuff like that. But yeah, that about sums it up. What I talked about, Pearly, Kishtir, all that sort of stuff. Oh yeah, real quickly, the Firewall tile decks or whatnot that showed up in the second MCS, I kind of didn't really have a plan for those, funny enough, because I didn't expect Firewall to be that much represented. Anyway, I don't think anybody did, really. Yeah, they were good, but, like, I don't think they were, like, the best deck anyway. I think Pearly still was, best deck there. Even though it didn't win, even though, the Firewall combo deck, won anyway. But I think that may be just because of nobody really knew fully what it did anyway. That's what kind of happens a lot of the time when new decks come out anyway. Like somebody wins some big tournament with them, mainly because everybody else doesn't know what they do. But yeah, I think it's a good deck all around or whatnot. But I still think Pearly's probably the best deck. Labrynth a good second. Labrynth's still second, right? But yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate the interest that everybody has taken in my list. This is the first time this has ever happened to me before. Not just winning no, not YC. We're not there yet. Not just winning the MCS and topping the next MCS immediately after that, but also just the interest that so many people have actually had in my decks. I've never really had that before. So yeah, thanks so much for the interest. I will. If you want to see more of this, I will happily make more of this. But yeah, if you have any questions, obviously comment down below or whatnot. I will try to answer as many as I can anyway. And especially if there's not that many, if we have questions, I will answer them. But yeah, again, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.